So we're going to go over the design, UI UX design. Let me quickly open that. All right. So this is how you are seeing the link. Yeah, I can see other people already here. So on this top right corner here, you can see people who are currently online on that link. So now, so by the left hand side, you can see. Let me turn off for better quality. Let me turn off my video. Stop video. All right. So you can see the size. Number one, if you click on this, if you click on this where you have MacBook Pro 14, right? Start from there. Click on that MacBook Pro 14. By the right hand side, what you can see is the width of the design. You can see it's a 1500 pixel width, right? You see this copy? Now, if you move your mouse away, that copy disappears. But if you move your mouse on top of these properties, these right hand side properties, you can see copy, and all that. So if you copy this, let me click on this, copy, and then if we head on to our source code, let's say, let me start this index.js. Let me open this. We're still going to talk about this. This is our starter file for today. But let me paste this here. So you can see this is the width. You can make use of this width in your CSS. You don't need to use the height, right? Height is just for the design in Figma. Ideally, you don't need to use the height. Even this one, you don't need this. Maybe nah, you don't even need all this. So right now the width of the website is 1512. So we can just say maybe 1500, or or if you want to be specific, yeah, 1512. That's the width of the website, right? That's that. The link, are we meant to use the size given, or is that the size of the web page? That's this. Yeah, so when you have a design like this, you must design according to specification, right? So in this case, the width, this is the width of the website. So you should design according to specification, except your client says, or maybe after designing discover that 1500 is too small, then you cannot increase the size, right? So yeah, it depends on that. Yeah, thank you. Somebody has shared the link. That is the Figma link. Okay, so now that's that. Now this gives you the width of the website, right? Also, you can see the color, which means what we're seeing here is the body, like the root of your web page. So the color here is white, obviously, right? Under I will also talk about export. So at this top level, you don't need to export anything except you want to export this whole thing as an image. You don't need to export this whole page. If you do export, if you export this whole page, it's going to come out just as as an image, depending on the format you pick from here. So, but we don't want that. We only want to export the individual image assets, right? That's that. Now, by the left hand side, you can see the layers. Back to the design again. So again, click on this to select the whole page, the whole design. This is going to give you the width. All you need here is the width of the website, and of course the background color by default should be white. So consider that as well, because what I can see here, the main background color is white. This is white. So the background color by default is white, but these are different sections. You now add on top of the background, right? So these are different sections to be added on top of the body or the background. It depends on how you want to do it. But if you don't have any background, by default the body is white. That's what we have there. So by the left hand side, we can see the layers, right? So each of these components, each of these items that you have on this page, once you select, they are all shown on the left hand side. For example, you can click on individual items. You can zoom in. Let me try to zoom in. So we can see the individual items, right? So if you click on simplify your home furniture, this is the item here, right? And as you click on each of those items, you can see the individual properties. So for example, this is for layout. You really do not consider when you are developing for items like this. You don't need to consider layout. What you need to consider is, number one, typography, of course, the content. If I copy this typography now, copy, right, and I go to my source code, let me open CSS, open my CSS, go down somewhere and paste. You can see, so the font, in fact, let me do this. Let me just do anything here. Hope you can still see my screen. So this gives you the font family, the font size, font weight, line height, text align center. So which means for this particular element, whatever name you want to give to it in your CSS, right? This will be the properties. I just used body here. Of course, that's not body. Maybe you named it, let's call it, since it's like the biggest font on this design, we can call it the H1 tag. Let's say maybe in your HTML, it's an H1 tag, right? And it is inside, let's say it's inside the part. Now, so assuming you have that particular element in your HTML as, let's say, div, or let's do center, whatever it is. You don't have to do what I'm doing here. H1, right? So if it's an H1 element or whatever tag you want to use. So as we've clicked on it, you can see the content is highlighted. So I can just come and copy. I can copy the content, paste here as my H1 element, right? So that's that. Then in your CSS, you can now target maybe .center /H1 and now give it these properties, right? Look at. So in your HTML, this is the H1 element, excuse me. And then in your CSS, you can now select. You can see the way I'm selecting. Remember how you select CSS elements. This H1 is under this center class. So you do center H1. You are doing this because you want to be specific. If you just do H1, right? What if there are other H1 elements in your markup, but of which in this particular design you may not really have any other H1? So this could be the only H1. All this can be maybe H2 or H3. Same thing, H2. H2. This because they are like header tags. Header elements. So yeah, that's that. That's how to select properties. Again, everything you are seeing on this design is a component, is an element, right? For example, this image, if I click on this, you can see the name is look at my left hand side, it is mockup wall dark living room interior whatever. So that is the image. You can even can you turn it off from here? Okay, no, you can't turn it off. Anyways, this is the image And how do you get this image? You can download, right? Again, you can actually select all the images and download everything at once, or you download each of them, one after the other. For example, now that this one is selected, I can come to this export. See this export section by the right hand side. Export as PNG or SVG. SVG is good because it's vector graphic, right? It will not. It gives you the best resolution. Yeah, so to say, SVG gives you the best resolution. So if you know how to work with SVG images, I would advise you download SVG. Just Google how to use SVG in your HTML. It's very simple. Or PNG, you can download it as PNG as well, and then use your normal IMG tag to reference it. So again, what is a typography? I think there are about 2 different typographies here. Look at this header element here, or which is standing as the logo of this design of this UI. If we move to the right again, typography, the font is what? Montserrat Subrayada. Just copy it again, copy it, come to your CSS, and paste. In fact, it's already here. Oh no, not for this one, but for the heading, for the, let me call it logo. You don't have to, so whatever name you give to yours, that's what you will use. If I paste here, so the font family is Montserrat Subrayada. The font size is 100 pixel. You may need to adjust a few things, right? Font weight is regular. Line height, text align is left. Text underline position, that's how to get all those properties like that. So, and I think it's the same font type with the menus. You can see, if you double click on this, each of them has Montserrat Subrayada as the font. Weight is 400, size is, now you may not, so by default you may not have Montserrat Subrayada, right? Again, as we have learned, just go to Google Font, fonts.google.com, look for that particular Montserrat Subrayada, right? If I search Montserrat, see, it's there. It's available on Google Fonts, Montserrat Subrayada. So this is the font. So you get font, click on get font. So click on get font, then get embedded code, just like we did the last time. So for the link, you just copy this and paste it in your markup. So again, go back to our previous videos on how to use Google Fonts. You understand better. Somebody's asking, how are we going to go about the size of the web page given, because I think it would look somehow on different devices. Yeah, so you're talking about responsiveness, right? So because we've not talked about responsiveness, or we've not practiced responsiveness for now, just do it for a desktop. Just do it for a desktop. For now, it's not mobile responsive. So once we discuss how to make your website responsive, then you can now work on it further to make it responsive. We've not talked about media queries, so yeah, so for now you can just hold on that. So the assignment is work on a desktop version of this application, of this design. You can see the design from the ground up is MacBook Pro 14 inches. So this is a desktop screen. It's a desktop screen. So that's that. What other question again can I answer for you? Click on each one of them. Download the image assets. If you click on any of the images, you will see export here. Click on it. You know how to download. You can click on FBG or PNG and then export mask group. So once you do that, it's going to export that for you. Also, some of the components are in groups. For example, let me see. This is a group. This is a group. So if you click on a group, it may not, you may need to double click, right, for you to have access to the individual components. For example, then this now gives you, so just expand that group and then you can view the children further. For example, like this group 7, where is it here? Yeah, so this group 7 is this. So this group 7 is for all these components here, of which you don't even need to download these icons. You can easily get them on remember Font Awesome? Yes, you can get all this from Font Awesome. So yeah, just check what we did on how to do font. In fact, I think we also demoed a very quick way of getting all your fonts. So just go to Font Awesome CDN, just do CDN. So look at Font Awesome. It's also hosted on CDN.js. So just download this first one, copy this first one. Look at it says copy link tag. This one contains all the free Font Awesome icons, right? So click on this link, copy link tag, come to your markup of which I also did in this place. See, once you paste that, you have everything you need for your Font Awesome. You don't need to download anything. So it's already hosted on CDN.js, on Cloudflare. Yeah, Cloudflare. Cloudflare is a CDN provider. So once you have that downloaded, put it in the head section of your markup. Then at every point in your source code, just start calling. For example, this is a floppy disk. Remember your I tag. Let me quickly show you that. So you go to your, in case you are wondering how will you identify those icons. So go to Font Awesome itself now, like fontawesome.com. So here under icons, search for, let's say, Facebook. So it's going to load. Now remember, we're looking for the free ones. So you can see most of them are pro here, but click on this free button here, right? Yeah, I'll prefer SVG. SVG is good. So now for the free, so you can see Facebook is here. So once you click on it, this is what you need. This is the I tag you need. Just copy this, come to your HTML and paste, right? Just paste. That's all. So anywhere you want an icon, go to Font Awesome, pick the icon, get the I tag, come and paste in your source code. Already you've done this. So once you've done this from CDN.js, you will see your icon. It is going to show up. It's going to show up. So that's that. Any other question? So, of course, logically, I'm sure you know this. These are sections. This is section, another section, another section, another section, another section, right? Or maybe a single section. Then this is your footer, right? So your logo is here. You can use things like grid layouts, CSS grid for something like this, or you put all this in a list, another list. Now you use CSS Flexbox to arrange all the 4 elements. So depending on how you look at it, I can view this as one component, another component, another element, and I use Flexbox to spread them out, right? Or I view each of these as grids, right? And use CSS grid to lay out all of them at once. So yep, that's that. This is a component, a component, a component, a component. Flexbox or grid of CSS Flexbox to just spread this out. Remember, you can use a border. So this is going to be border right. So for each of the component, put a border right, border right, border right. For the last item, I don't know how you're going to do this. So yeah, figure out. Remember, we talked about pseudo classes. So I want a border right on each of these elements, excluding the last item. So you can use the not last item or not last child to make sure that the border doesn't appear on the right hand side for this last child. So now I'm beginning. So I can see I'm giving you ideas already, and that's not the only way to do it. So just figure out the best way you can do it and the way you can do it, or the way you understand it. So that's that. These are the menu items or the nav items. So remember, follow semantic HTML. You must use the nav HTML element for this. This is make sure this is also clickable, takes you back to the home page. So that's that. So yeah, I think that covers it all. You can see this dev mode here, right? So assuming you have dev mode even makes Figma design or Figma UI UX a lot more simpler. With dev mode, if you have a paid version of Figma, you can go into dev mode and you can see the CSS directly and just copy out the CSS and use it in your development. So yeah, whether I have dev mode or not, try to do this. And I would even advise for beginners, don't use the dev mode for now. Try to handcraft all this, right? Already you can copy all the properties. So make sure you have all the properties. Then, let me talk about this button. Yeah, this is you can see this button has an effect, right? It's a group. So open the group. This is the text itself, but what I want to show to you is this rectangular, the rectangle background. So this is the CSS here. So you can see it has a border. If you copy this border, let's quickly demo this. It has the linear gradient. The width is this, but let's quickly copy the color, come back to your style. Let's say this is the button. So you can see this is background. So you don't need to start worrying about how will you apply those effects. So Figma already gives you all that. So linear gradient and all that. Then copy again the border. There's a border there. Copy this one. Come back, paste. See, that's the border, 3 pixels solid white. And then come back again. There's a shadow and blur on it. So copy this, come back and paste. So background filter. So it has given you the CSS property. So this is what you need for the button component. So there's a background filter on it. There's a border. There is a gradient on you can see how the design looks like. It's like it's transparent. So that's the filter effect. So everything you need is here. Just copy to your CSS and code. Is the project just one page? Yes, it's just one page. You can work on multiple pages for now. Not that you can't, but I'm looking at the time, right? So this is going to take you a while, maybe 1 week to finish it. So imagine having several pages of this. It's like we are already building a whole product. We are not building the entire product yet. We are just building this page. So, but with the knowledge from this one, we're able to build the other parts of a project like this. For example, look at the catalog. You can start. I can just imagine how the catalog is going to be like. There will be it's going to be a listing of all furniture items. You can like. You can select. You can buy. And yeah, contact can just be a simple contact page. About can just be a simple about page. So yeah, that's that for now. So today we're looking at JavaScript, right? And what we're going to be building today, we're going to, yeah, so let me just quickly demo what I have here. Let me just quickly show you the final. Is this the final one? Let me go to final index.html. So let's preview this one. Hopefully we can cover the basics before we work on this. So open with live server. Let me bring it closer to us here, or bring it to this screen rather. All right, so look at what is on my screen right now. This is, we've talked about this. This is basic HTML, right? There's an H1 tag, and then this is a form element, which we're going to talk about today as well. And then this is a button with an icon. So what we're doing here, this is a mini project that we're going to start working on for this JavaScript class. So it is called my book library. Let me make sure. Okay. So the idea is that as you have books to read, right, you have a place to track what you are reading. So you have a library online where you can add books you are currently reading, books you've read, or you can also delete books you've read and things like that. So it's a simple application to demo what JavaScript can do. So for example, if I say add a book title, I'm just typing anything, or let's say The Legend of the Seekers, right? Assuming this is the book you want to read and you want to keep track of that book. So I can save this book, right? See, The Legend of the Seekers. Assuming I have another book, How to Know God, right? I can click on this, right? And there's another book, Becoming a Child of God. And then, so you can see disappeared. So there is an alert that disappears. There is a clear all button at the bottom. And each entry has I call this like in progress, like I'm currently reading this book. So if you click on this, it should indicate that it's in progress. This one should indicate that you are done with the book. This is still work in progress actually. So we're still going to perfect this, but I think the delete button is working. So for example, if you read The Legend of the Seekers and you want to remove it from your library, you can click on this delete. You can see it's gone and it tells you book deleted, right? Now let's say I want to add something and I've not entered that thing, and I click on this. You can see this alert. It tells you enter book title, and then it disappears. So you are beginning to see the power, the power of JavaScript. Is this not just plain HTML or CSS that cannot do anything, but you are adding interactivity. And with time, you can also save on this project. We can save this content, because if I refresh this, let me refresh this page. Let me refresh this page. You you can see everything disappears or disappeared, right? So what we intend to do is to be able to save the content of your book library. Imagine coming to your library every day and everything is, everything is empty. That's not good. That's not user friendly. You want to be able to save those books so that when next you even come, it's gonna populate those libraries for you. So we start talking about CRUD, create, update, delete. CRUD, create, read, update, delete. So it's an aspect of programming you must understand. How to creating and inserting things into database, reading content from database, updating those content and deleting those content, right? So we're going to talk about that, fully when we start talking about MongoJS. But for this mini project, we'll be using something called local storage. On your browser, the browser has something called local storage. Local storage, right? So local storage is a feature that browser manufacturers have added to their browsers to store things locally on your to persist. That's the term. To persist items locally in your browser. So, which means if you clear your cache or if you delete your browser or reinstall your browser, those things are gonna go away, right? So, so local storage is how to add a set an item. This how to get an item, remove an item from this, how to clear your entire local storage for that particular domain. You might be thinking, oh, am I clearing all local storage for all websites? No, but for that particular domain is domain specific, right? So we'll be using something like this to demo this simple library that we'll be working on. But before we discuss this, let's now talk about JavaScript, right? So today we're talking about arrays. Let's start with arrays. Arrays in JavaScript. So what are arrays? Arrays are basically objects or JavaScript objects that could serve as a container for other objects, right? If we look at, let me go to, hope you can still see my screen. So array object. So look at this particular object now that has items in it, right? There are several boxes or several containers. It's a particular container but having several compartments. So see an array as an object that has several compartments, and each of the compartments can house different items or the same item, right? In other programming languages, a particular array, an array of integers, for example, can only store integers. An array of boolean or double or floats can only store, floating point numbers. But in JavaScript, you can mix the content of your arrays. You can mix the data. So which means, for example, in this, and each array has an index, right? So the first element in the array has an index 0. Next is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth, right? So that is the concept of arrays. That's the concept of arrays. But how do you define an array? Remember, we said it's like a box, a container that has several compartments. So you define an array by using these angle brackets. By using square brackets, not angle brackets. Those are square brackets. So you define an array with what? With square brackets. So for example, I can say let animals, since that's the example we just showed, let animals equals, I want an array of all of animals, right? So for example, like the example we showed now, we can say dog is an animal, bird is an animal. What else again do we have here? There's cat. There's cat. There is horse, you know, and so on and so forth, right? So this is how you declare an array. This is how you declare. And you separate each of those elements, each of those compartments by what? By commas. Look at comma, comma, comma. You can't use space. You use commas to separate arrays in JavaScript. That's how to do that. So we said an array is an object that acts like, you know, it's a bigger object that can hold several smaller objects. You know, in our last class, assuming we wanted to define a variable of dog, I'll say let dog, or let variable name, let's say animal 1 equals, we'll do something like this, dog. So which means this variable called animal1 can only hold one item, one object in memory, and that is dog. But now imagine this particular one. This is also a variable, it's also an object, it's also a memory space on this laptop, on this computer. But now with just seeing a single object, I'm holding several other sub-objects, right? So that is the benefit of an array. With an array, you can group things together into one object, and then you reference those objects. All right. So now I said in JavaScript you can mix the elements of an array. For example, I can say let another keyword I can use is const, and we talked about this the last time. When you have a variable that will not change, you use the keyword const. When you have a variable that may change later on, that you may manipulate later on, you use the keyword let to declare that variable. And there's another one called var. We said var has been not really deprecated, but it's the old way of declaring variables, and they make your variables global. And because of that, there are issues with it. So in modern JavaScript, you don't use var to declare variables again. So, but let's say we have another mixed object. Let's say this is the variable and it's an array. I can put 1 or 2. I can do false. I can do dog. I can do anything. You can see where I'm mixing different types of objects. 2 is a number. False is a boolean, is a boolean value, true or false. Dog is a string. I can do a floating point number, 3.142 for pi, you know. So you can mix variables or entries of your array in JavaScript. But in some other languages, you can't. You can't do that. You can't do that. When you declare an array, you must give it a type. For example, an array of integers, and they must all be integers. All the entries must be integers, like in Java or C#, for example. But in JavaScript, you are allowed to mix, different types in your arrays. Any questions so far? You can also declare an empty array. For example, I can say let empty. I'm just giving a name, empty array. This way, this is a valid JavaScript expression. It simply means that this array has been declared, but there are no elements in the array, right? There are no children or no items in the array. That's the meaning. Let me bring up I want to make sure I can see the chat window. Where is the chat window? 1 minute, please. So when you have questions, I can see your question. Okay, so I have it up already. So somebody's asking, can we use double quotes? Yes, yes, you can use double quotes for, in fact, if I save, if I Control S, because I've configured, okay, so yeah, I can use single quotes and then double quotes. For example, here I can do, so JavaScript supports both single quotes and double quotes. So this is an empty array. Now, how do you access your arrays? Remember I said arrays have indices, which means every item has an index. So for you to access an array element or an array item, you use the index of that particular compartment to get that particular array. So how do we access, how do we get, assuming I want to display the content of this array, animals, assuming I want to get the first element, I want to get this dog or this bird. Bird is in what position? Remember, the indices start from 0, 1. So you don't say 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, there are 4 elements in this array or 4 items in this array, but the first element is at index 0, index 1, index 2, and then last one is at index 3. So, for example, if we want to log out, log animals, and this is how you access the items. You use a square bracket again, but you now put the value, the index of that particular item. For example, if I want to access animal bird, I'll do 1 here. Right? Remember, this is 0, 1, 2, and 3. So that's animals 1. So if we log this, let's see what this is going to give to us. Let's log. Let me view this open in live server. All right, while that is loading, so let's just keep on talking about arrays. So we have, so like I said, it's an empty array, and if you want to access any element or any item in the array, you use your square brackets and then the index of that particular child. So we have different methods that I can use to operate on an array. Somebody's asking, what is the principle for declaring mixed objects? What practical use cases would make one use it? Again, why did you use cons for the mixed object? So now, when you are declaring objects, right, assuming you have a mix of data and you must use the same array object to operate on them, right? For example, you have a data of, let's say, student records saved in a database, and you need to pull those student records. Now, every student has individual properties. For example, an ID of the student could be an integer. Is the student registered enrolled in this semester or in this term? That could be a Boolean operation, true or false, right? Another item could be a string item. For example, the name of the student, the department of the student, the courses that they've taken, for example. Those are string items. So if you are bringing all that once, right, you are pulling all that data at once, and it's coming as, most times it's going to be a JSON object or a GraphQL query or whatever. It's going to come as mixed objects. So that is the situation. So in that scenario, you now need to iterate through the array to pick out what you need. Maybe for a particular student 001 or a particular student 529, you use the ID of that student to now filter through the array to select. And what you discover that the object that is being returned is going to be a mix of data types, right? It's going to be a mixture of data types. It says, why did I use const? Const, I just use const here to let you know that it is not only let used for creating variables. You use const to create a variable that will not change. So if at some point later on I'm reassigning, look at, I'm reassigning const, although we've not gotten there, you can also reassign this array to something else. Let's say bird. Dog, right? So remember, this is a const variable, and then I'm now reassigning it. That means I'm changing, I'm making this mutable. A const object should be immutable, right? Now I'm making it mutable. Let's see, let's output what we have here first. Let's go to console. Yeah, so I'm going to tell you this why this error is coming up now. So you can see it says, look at this error message. Uncut type error, invalid assignment to what? To a const mixed object. Mixed object is the name of this variable. But because you've declared it as a constant variable, JavaScript expects you not to reassign, not to change the value of that variable. So that's immutability. A const object should be immutable. You know, like the example I gave to you now, you fetch the records of a student and a student ID is ID 001 or ID 20 or 1234. So that ID should not change for that student. It should be immutable, right? But the same variable you use for that ID can be used to reassign. You know, you can use that same variable for other students in that same class. So, but if you reassign a const object, JavaScript is going to throw this error that, hey, take care, you are this is a constant variable. You are not meant to change that value, right? But then you may not ask, how else can I change the value of that item? Then you declare a different object, let's say with a let keyword. Let's say let mixed object 2 equals. Now assign this to this, right? Let's comment this out because this is wrong. So then we can now mutate. Object 2. Look at this. Remember, for the let keyword, you can reassign, you can change, you can modify, you can mutate the variable. But for const, you are not supposed to do so. It should be final. In some other programming languages, they call it final, right? So now, if you still want to change the content of a particular variable, then reassign it to a different variable with a let keyword, and then change the content of that new variable. This is mixed object 2 is a new variable. Mixed objects is still constant. It never changes. It's still constant throughout the life cycle of this particular source code. As it runs, mixed objects is constant. But if you wish to change the element of mixed object, then must reassign it to a different variable that you can mutate, and then now mutate that particular one. Let's log mixed objects. Log mixed objects. Mixed is not defined. Where is it? Mixed is not defined. Where did that do? Oh, mixed is not defined. Mixed objects. Where is my bug here? Uncut reference error. Mixed is not defined. Let me refresh this. Okay. All right. So I just refreshed. So look at the first one here is array. This mixed object. This is the value. This is the content. It's a single array object with 4 items, right? 2, false, dog, 3.142. Remember we said it has indices. You can see the way it's showing up here. 0, 1, 2, 3. And it's telling us the length is 4. That's one property of arrays. You can use the length property. Look at, if I log mixed object dot length is a property of all arrays, right? Look at, you can see 4 here. Let me use template strings. Template strings, put length here. Let's say array length. So look at, see, array length is 4, right? It's telling us the length of the array is 4. So assuming you want to, so this now, this length enables you to iterate through the array. All right, so yeah, let's keep going. We've talked about the length of the array, how to access individual elements of an array. Then there are some special methods, array methods. For example, we have the push function or method. So you can use the push function to add an element item to the end of the array. For example, remember we have array mixed objects of 2, false, and 3.142. Assuming I want to add something new, another item, right? I can use the push function. So I can say mixed objects. Again, this is a constant value. You cannot mutate this. So let's use mixed objects 2 in this case. In fact, let's log out mixed objects 2 so that you know that they are both equal. So if we log mixed object 2 at this point, let's log mixed object 2 at this point. Mixed object 2 at this point is this. Then after that, log mixed object 2 again. Mixed object 2 at this point. Let's see the difference. So this is the first one. This is the original object or array as a const object, as a const value. This one here. But now we assigned it to mixed objects 2, meaning that all the elements of mixed objects will be assigned to mixed objects 2, and we are logging it out. See, it's giving us the same thing: 2, false, dog, and 3.142. But this second one is now a mutable array because we declared it with the let keyword, and the next line we now change the content, right? Saying this is sheep, this is this is ladybug, right? Look at the next line: sheep and ladybug. Refresh because my system is slow, so that's why. So ladybug. So at line 103, mixed object 2 had the content of mixed objects, but at line 107 we've changed the content of mixed object 2, so it is now mutable because we're using the let keyword. But if, assuming we wanted to do the same thing with this one and to change the content, it's going to give us the same error we saw the other time, that you are trying to mutate, you are trying to change the content of a const variable, so it doesn't allow that, right? So now let's talk about, so let's using the push function now. How do we add something to the end of the array? Remember, we can only mutate mixed objects 2 because of how we have defined it here. Assuming I want to add another animal to this, after sheep and ladybug, I want to put something else programmatically now. At runtime, I can do so by using the push function. So I'll do mixed object 2 dot what? Push. So let's push something. What other animals can we push? Let's push animal. Let's push cat, right? So let's say the output. Oh, we've not logged this. So let's log mixed object 2 at this point. You can see the way we are mutating mixed object 2. So mixed, refresh. System is slow. Sorry about that. I didn't restart my system, I think today, or maybe since for some days now. So look at mixed object 2 again. We've modified it. We've pushed, at this point we've modified it. We've added something to the back or to the end of the array. So this is now the output: sheep, ladybug, cat. Remember, it used to be sheep and ladybug. Now we've added cat to the end of the array. So that's that. Sorry, can you take that array length again? Array length of what? Yeah, the length is going to change. If I do array length, let me copy this from here. If I do array length of mixed object 2 from here, see, remember to change this because we are dealing with the mixed object 2. Look at, see, mixed object 2 length is 2 because we have 2 items, sheep and ladybug. But if we now take the same length again at line 1, let's do 119, after adding cat to it. Now look at, see, mixed object 2 length is now 3 with 3 items, sheep, ladybug, and cat. Hope you are getting this. So as you are modifying, the content is changing. But at any point, if you take the length of mixed object, the original one, it's always going to be 4 because the content has not changed, and the content cannot change because it's a const variable. So what is the difference between, so in some other programming languages, they call it lists, right? Like in Python, you see something like this in Python as lists. Look at, in Python, this is a list in Python. This is same way. This is how you define a list in Python, right? So yeah, so a list is a higher level object compared to an array. They basically depends on the programming language. Like I said, in Python, they call it a list, but here these are arrays. But I think JavaScript also has a list object, a particular list object. Let me see. System is slow today. JavaScript list object. Yeah, so what I'm seeing here is just arrays. So anyway, so they do the same thing. Whether you are in Python and you call them lists, or you are in JavaScript, you call them arrays. They are basically the same thing. And in Python also, you can mix the types of the objects of the elements in your array. So now we've pushed an element. You can also pop. Popping is when you want to remove an item from the end of the array. Pop. So by the time we start talking about, I don't know if we'll get there, but in data structures, right, which is the backbone of computer science or programming, right? Data structures. An array is a type of data structure. Stack, lists, linked lists, different. So there are different data structures, right? So if all of them still make use of these types of functions, you can pop an element from the end or the top of a stack. You can push an element to the top of a stack, so you all make use of all these functions. So the pop function is to take an element or to remove an element from the end of an array. For example, assuming I want to remove the last element in mixed objects 2, I can do mixed object 2 dot pop. So it's always going to pop the last item. Now let's now print out mixed object 2. Let's log mixed object 2 again at this point. You can see it's back to sheep and ladybug. Here it was sheep, ladybug, cat. Pop means that we've popped the last item. We'll remove the last item from the end of the array. From the end of the array. All right, so let's talk about control structures, which is very important. Control structures or your flow, right? Now, the first one is the if else, and I think we've seen this somewhere. Control structure, if else. So this is how you write it. If condition, right? You open your brace. After it's optional. If it's just one line, you don't need to open your brace. And then your statements. Statements. So this is how the if else condition works. That means if the condition is true, that condition part is a Boolean expression. It has to be Boolean. That will be expressed as a Boolean, variable. For example, if I have const age equals 15, right? And I want to check, let's do 13. Let's do 13. And I want to check whether this person is of age to watch a particular TV show, right? I can do if age, remember this is the syntax. Let me comment this out. So I can now do if the condition is age, if age is greater than or equal to 13, right? I can console log and just do log. You can watch this show, right? So look at the output. It says you can watch this show. The reason is this age is what is 13. And we're saying, and the condition is if this person's age is greater than or equal to 13, you can watch this show. Assuming this person is, let's say, 12, right? Let's check the output. Ooh, we can't see that output here. So that's the else part. You can now put that condition in the else part. So else, I can say let me try to increase my Yep. So we can see clearly. So now S, you are not yet of age. So let's see the output. Can see the output here. You are not yet of age, right? Let me comment out all my previous, so we have something clean to work with. All right, so it says you are not yet of age. Console log. Where am I still getting 2, 2, and 3? Where is that coming from? Oh, okay. From last week. All right. So it says you are not yet of age. You can see the output there. So that this is the if else condition. So assuming you are working on a project and you need to check, and there's a conditional expression for you to evaluate. You know, you have a project, like for example, this furniture project. If you want to take it further, you want to develop the backend for it, or you want to make sure that somebody who is purchasing furniture on your website is already registered. You can say if there's a flag for register. So if registered, or if user is registered, then move on to this section or load this page, or so we're going to do all that by the time we start talking about React and start building full applications. Somebody's saying, sir, please, I thought it was only square brackets we are to use in JS. Oh, okay, this is curly brace, right? Yeah, sorry for not mentioning this. So the square brackets we saw here, these square brackets, they are for creating arrays. Take note. So there are different types of brackets. There's square brackets, there are curly brackets, there is a normal brackets. This one, you can see, normal brackets for creating functions, assigning, passing parameters to functions. You use normal brackets like this. Square brackets is for what? For creating, for declaring arrays and assigning values to them. But for blocks, code blocks, look at code blocks, you use your curly braces. And I said they are optional if it is just one line. For example, I can actually do this since it's just one line. Let me see if this is going to work. So I can actually do this since this is just one line of code. Look at, let's see the output. See, it's still working. It says you are not yet of age. So if you have just one line of code as the statement of an if condition or if else condition, you can do without the curly braces, right? So, but if you have more than one line, for example, there's another statement here I want to do, say log. You can watch this show. Make sure to sign up. Already I'm seeing errors by the side. You can see it says expected expression got keyword else. You see, so for this to work, you must now put it in a curly brace, and it's going to work. Of course, let me refresh this. Okay, I've not done this. So S, curly brace, and then curly brace. So you can see you are not yet of age. Why is it not logging this part? Let me refresh. Oh, sorry, I changed. So the age is what? Is 13, greater than 13. So let's do something. Anything greater than 13. Let's say the person is 40 years old, right? So it says you can watch this show. Make make sure to sign up. You can see. So that's how if else condition control structure works. And remember we talked about different Boolean expressions. So this is greater than or equal to, there is less than, there is equal to. For example, assuming I need a hard check. If the person must be equal to 13, see, this is going to be false. It's going to go to the else block because 40 is not equal to 13, right? It's not equal to. So in JavaScript, there is triple equal to sign and there is double equal to. So now this is the difference. I can as well do this double equal to, which is common in some other programming languages for those that are coming from Java or C++ or or C#. You see this double equal to, which is the normal equality operator. But in JavaScript takes it a step further to validate the type of what you are checking. So if you use triple equal to, JavaScript is validating both the value and the type. For example, this value here is 13. It's an integer. It's a number. It will also check whether this variable age is an integer or a number data type. So that's what the triple equal to sign means. And ideally in JavaScript, make sure to use this so as not to introduce bugs. For example, const age is of integer because this is a number. For example, let me see if this will work. Let me quote this 40. Or let me make this 13. Let's make sure what we're doing is correct. So const age, in this case, it says you are not of age. Can you get what we're doing here? Let me explain this further. Let me take off the quotation mark. Look at the output. String. My system is slow. Let me refresh. Now look at the right hand side. It says you can watch this show. Make sure to sign up because age equals 13. Now we're trying to compare the difference between triple equal to and double equal to. We say for triple equal to, it will compare both the left hand side and the right hand side. It will compare the values as well as the data type. So the value on the right hand side is 13 and the data type is integer or number. It will check, is this age also an integer or a number, which is true here because we declared it without quoting it. Once you don't quote a number by default, JavaScript is going to see it as a number, right? So look at this. So the first part of the if condition is evaluated. But assuming I now quote this, look at this 13 is no more a number, it's now a string. It's now a string. So because of that, it will come to the else block. It will evaluate this as false because I'm comparing 13 a string with 13 a number, which is wrong. But let's do the double one. I think this should work. Let's see. Yes, this is going to work because the double equal to doesn't compare the data types of both sides. Yes, so with the quotation mark, it becomes a string. Without the quotation mark, is a number. So take note of that. These are the nuances, the little things, the things you see in JavaScript that are not common in some other programming languages. But the best practice is always to use the triple equal to in JavaScript so that you are comparing both the value and the data type of what you are checking, of your Boolean expression. So in this case, 13 should not be a string, it should be a number, right? So let me refresh this. So that's the difference. That is the difference. So it's not loading for me. All right, so that's the difference. So we've talked about if else, and then there's also switch case. There's a switch case control structure as well. Switch case. Switch case. So the switch case structure is used when you have, it's similar to if else, right? But when you have multiple conditions to check, the switch case control structure kind of compresses all that for you and makes your code more readable, more compact, more readable. That's like the main advantage of the switch case. This is the syntax. Let's look at the syntax first. You do you switch a particular variable, switch variable, right? And inside you now start looking at case condition colon statement. You can break case, another condition again, case condition 2, condition 2 statements, you break, and so on and so forth. Now get your default output statements or message or whatever I want to do here. Message. So this is the syntax, right? You have, let me do this so that it is clearer. So look at this. This is how you use your switch case control structure. For example, assuming this same person who is 13 years, right? Age is 13. I've declared it at this point. Age is 13. I can do switch age, the variable you are switching, right? I cannot say case, that age is 13. If that age is 13, full colon, I can say log you are of age, right? Break. Maybe there's another condition I want to check again. In case the age is 20, or let's say 10 colon, I can do you are not of age, break, then and give it a default expression. I can log please try again or something, right? So, but let's check. Let's see the output. I can see you are of age here. Can you see? You are of age because this first condition is already met. Look at age. In case age is 13, remember we've declared age at line 128, right? So we can still use it anywhere. So in case age is 13, I can say you are of age. Because age is 13, this is going to work and it's going to break. Now let's explain break. Now, assuming this break is not here, right? Remember, this is control flow. It's going to keep on checking all the cases. If this break is not here, imagine you have like 100 case statements to check. Then your program will not be performant, right? That means it will have to check all those cases for it to arrive at the result. Assuming this is 10 and this is 13, or in fact, if this 13 is like the last condition in a series of so many cases, it's going to check all of them before arriving at a particular condition, right? That's the difference. So, but if we use break, once it gets to, let me undo this so that you can test what break does. Once a condition is met, look at, once it checks that the age is 13 and it prints you have age, it's going to break out of this block entirely. The execution flow is going to break out of this block and jump to the next line of code, whatever line of code you have here. But if break is not here, it's going to keep on checking 13, 10, until it gets to a default value and then tells you, I can't find any condition. There is no case at all that matches, the previous cases. So I'm going to output this default message or default message, right? So that's how the switch case and the break works. So this is switch case. Then how about the for loop? Oh, this is very important. For loop. There are some other looping statements. Looping structures. Let's talk about that. So the first one is your for loop. Assuming you want to do something multiple times. For example, I want to list all the students in my class. There is students. Let's do this again. Let students equals, let's give it an array. James, Badmos, Felicia, Tayo, Eniola, right? So assuming we have all this, I want to list out, in fact, having an array is the first thing, is the first thing to do, because you're having a list of students. It doesn't make sense to start creating variables to start assigning each of these students to a particular variable. Let's say students 1, James, let students 2, Badmos, let students 3, Felicia, let students 4, Tayo, let student 5, Eniola, and you're not printing out all those variables. That's not the best way to do that. You are doing the same thing multiple times. There is a way you can use, control structures to do that. That's the looping statements. So we have the for loop. For example, like I said, there is the for loop now, and this is the syntax. let's talk about for loop. This is the syntax. You have, let me do this first. You do for init condition iteration statements. So this is the syntax. Now how do we use this? Now look at, it says for, it's called a for loop. We want to loop through a particular section of our code multiple times. For example, we want to print out all the students in this particular class, and there's a variable called students that is an array containing all these names. I don't have to be doing print this, print that, log this, log that. How many times? 5 times. Normally I could have done log students. Remember how you access your students with square brackets and then with an index? So this is going to log James out, right? Refresh. Come on. System is slow. So this should log James, right? Assuming you want to print Badmus, then you do log student 1, log student 2, log student 3, log student 4. Instead of doing all that, you can use a single statement to print out all the elements in that array. So using the for loop, right? So what is the initial condition? Remember init. What is the initial condition? I can do let the initial condition start from 0. Remember the arrays. This is because I want to print an array. So I can say I want to start printing from index 0, right? So the first condition is I'm creating a variable called I. It can be anything, it can be any name, right? So I'm setting it to 0, then semicolon. What is the condition? I want to check. So as long as students.length, remember the length property of an array, as long as length, or let's do I less than students.length, then what's now the iteration? I can do, this is where we are going to use something we learned last week. Remember, we talked about increment and decrement operators. You see, that's why we are building on previous class, right? So this is now a use case now. So we are building on what we learned last week. I++ simply means that we are incrementing the value of I and assigning it to itself. So this is how it works. So let me open my block. Hope we are following. So it says let I equals 0, students I less than students.length. Remember student.length. Let's print out student.length so that we understand what we're dealing with. So let's log students.length. Why is this not loading here? Oh man. Okay. So look at these 5 we are seeing here is the length of this students array. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take note. So don't make the mistake of saying 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and say the length is 4. The length is not 4. The length is 5. But it is the index or the indices that starts from 0. Index of James is 0. Index of Badmus is 1. The index for Felicia is 2. Index for Tayo is 3. And index for Eniola is 4. But the length of this array, how many items can you see? Just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is the length property. That's 5, right? So now I want to print out all the elements in the student's array using just one line of code, right? So let's log that. Log students. Remember how you access an array? Use a square bracket. But in this case, the for loop gives us the indices already. So we're going to use, instead of using 0, 1, 2, 3, we're going to use our increment operator I of variable I. Look at. So let's explain this. The condition is, the loop is, you start with the initialization, semicolon, we're checking a particular condition, and then the iteration. So because it's a loop, it's going to check. It's going to start from I equal to 0 and print out students at 0. So it's going to put 0 here and print students at 0, meaning James. No. So it's going to print James out here. If you can see the right hand side, James is student 0. Now it checks, it increases the value. It checks, is I less than 5? Remember, student.length is 5. We've printed 5 here. So it checks, is 0 less than 5? That is true. It increases the value of I by 1, the increment operator. So I is now what? 1. Remember, I start from 0. So after the first loop, I becomes 1. Take note, it will now go back to the initial expression again. I is no longer 0 after the first loop. After the first loop, I becomes the next value of I. Remember, I'm increasing, doing I plus plus here. So I is now 1 at the second iteration. It now comes, it prints or it logs student 1. So who is student 1? 0, 1. That's Badmus. This is the second item here. It increases the I again. I plus plus. 1 plus 1. That's 2. It checks, is 1 still less than 5? That's true. It goes to the third loop. So console.log students 2. Right? So this is 0, 1, 2. It prints Felicia. Right? Remember, I is now 2. It increases I by 1. I is 3. It checks again. Is I still less than 5? That's true. It prints student at 3, at the third position. It increases I by 1 again. I is now 4. It checks. Is 1 still less than 5 here? Yeah. Is 4 still less than 5? That's true. It prints students at index 4. At index, index is 3 or 4 now. Then it checks, it increases again. Yes, at 4. It prints the last one, Eniola. So, but for the for loop, it works this way. You have a condition or a starting point, your initialization condition, and your check condition, then your iteration. For each time, in fact, let's print out, let's print out the value of I. Let's console log I at each iteration. Let's use template string loop 1. Let's do, this is called template string. So you can use this is not just normal quotation marks. So these are backticks. So when you use backticks, you can put in a template string in between 2 backticks and use your $sign, and then you pass in your variable. So it's called template string. So look at loop 0. Loop 0, it prints James. Let's try to combine. Let's combine this since we're using template strings. So I don't need this anymore. So let's add. So look at the right hand side. Loop 0 is James. Loop 1 is Badmos. Loop 2 is Felicia. Loop 3 is Tayo. Loop 4 is Eniola. So look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see. So it's going to increment the value. So it breaks out of this loop because I becomes 5 at some point. Remember, this is I. Look at loop I, loop 0, loop 1, loop 2, loop 3, loop 4. It becomes, at some point, I becomes 5, right? I becomes 5. It now checks, is 5 less than 5? Remember, our length is 5, which is false. 5 is not less than 5. It's now going to break out of this loop, and then it moves to the next line of your code. Somebody is saying, what is another way to write the condition other than I less than student.length? What is another way to write the condition? Do you want, you can choose to take it out of the loop. You can choose to take it out of the loop, maybe put it outside, right? Yeah, I guess I don't understand that question. So you are checking the length of this. For example, if you say, if you want to take it out of the loop, let's say let length equals students dot length. Maybe this is what you're asking. I'm not sure. Then that means I can put my length here. Is it going to give you the same output? We're just reassigning. So length is now holding what was there before, right? So yeah, the time. So this is 4:07. Yeah, that's true. People in Nigeria now should be, I think the time should be 11 for them already. So yeah, that's how you do loops in JavaScript. Next week, there's still a lot to cover before we start working on that project. I really want us to work on that book library project. Somebody's asking, is switch case faster than if else statement? Yes, switch case is faster because, like we said in the break, using the break clause. So if you've met a particular condition, right, then the control flow breaks out of the loop. You don't have to keep on checking. The control will not keep checking all other cases, and that slows down your. Of course, in a program like this, you may not really notice any difference, but think of magnitude of the data that Google is processing or Facebook is processing, or think of at that level you start appreciating performance. You start appreciating these basic things. There's also a for each. It's an enhanced looping condition. For example, I can do students dot for each. There is a for each condition. It takes a it takes a callback, right? And then you now pass your statements here. So this is an enhanced for loop as well, which is very useful for collections. An array is a type of collections. Lists are collections. So you make use of things like this in collections, So yeah, for example, I can just console out log item. So it's still going to give us the same. Compare this for loop and this for loop. This is so complex, right? But yes, I intentionally wanted us to go through it because this is still useful. It's fundamental, right? But compare this complex thing with this one. So simple. That means for each student, print out, this represents a particular, this item. It can be anything here. You are passing a variable. We can call this student, right? Singular. So I'm printing out a particular student. So for each student, print out that student. That's all. This is the output. James, Badmus, Felicia, Tayo, and Eniola. This one up is for this one. So yeah, next week I wanna we should start working on projects from next week. There are cool projects we can start working on to really test ourselves on JavaScript. So yeah, thank you very much for coming. We'll meet again next week. As we reviewed the project, please make sure to spend time to work on the project. If you have questions, join. For those who have not joined the Discord community, make sure to join. Make sure to join the Discord community so that you can ask questions and collaborate with others. In fact, this is the point you start collaborating with people, with other developers in the group, in the community. So make sure to do so. How do we submit the assignment? So testimony is asking you push to GitHub. Just push to GitHub. By now you should have created a GitHub repo and added me or invited me to the repo. So create a GitHub repo, invite j.ajibade to the repo. I'm typing it. Ajibade at gmail.com. So that's my other GitHub account email. So create a GitHub repo, invite that email, push your source code there, so I'll be able to see it.